Hi all, I just wanted to show you how arrays are seen in programs like Unity. So really quick, this is just a default layout and I have like a scene open with a cube in there. I'm going to create a new script. So right click in project, create, C#. Of course I have to name it. It's all going to be one word. And this time I'm going to do array example. Using Pascal casing as well, so it starts with a capital letter for each word in the word. Each word in the name. I double clicked it and it is loading. Okay, so now that we have our script here, I'm going to add above the start and update functions some public variables. I'm actually going to use variables for some objects, and an example of that would be public game object. And of course, it gives me a autofill option, and I think I'm hitting tab. I'm doing it so fast I don't remember if it's tab or enter, but one of those two will get you the rest of that so you don't have to type it all out. And just like any other array in the languages that we've been going over, after we say what type we want it to be, we put those brackets in to say it's going to have more than one in there. And then I'm going to name it. Let's go OBJS for objects. So we're going to assign the objects within the Unity interface. So here, I'm not going to put anything after that. I'm going to put a semicolon to end the line. And this is a way of saying, hey, it's going to be assigned separately outside of the text interface. It's going to be assigned in the full Unity interface. So after that has no squiggly lines, I'm going to save it. And you know it's saved because the asterisk is gone. So I'm going to go back to Unity. And you'll notice here that this it updates and you can see everything over here. You will not see anything that gives you an opportunity to update game object until, or OBJS, until we attach it to something. I'm going to, in my hierarchy, right click and I'm going to create an empty game object. And just to be on the safe side, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to right click on transform and I'm going to reset. And when I reset it, it goes and zeroes out everything about the game object when it comes to position, rotation, and scale. I'm going to rename my game object to game controller. And these can have spaces because technically the names of your objects in the hierarchy are strings. So you can have spaces there and name it whatever you want. So now that I have that, I'm going to put the script on the game controller, and then that way it'll always be available. So array example, I'm going to click and drag it onto here. And then you'll notice once I click and drag it onto the selected game controller, it shows up on the right. I could have also clicked and dragged it over to the right to have it up here, and I could also have said add component and then searched for it, and it would show up here for me to add it. But we already have one instance of it, so this is what our script looks like, and you'll notice right away that we have OBJS for objects, and it's our array, and you can tell it's an array because of this little arrow. It's a little drop down arrow. So I'm going to twirl it open, and the first thing it asks me is the size. And this is where you can set, and you should probably set an initial size, otherwise it's going to see it as just an empty array. So if I were to start one with 1, I could always hit 1 and hit enter, and then it'll ask me for what the first element in the array is, or the first value. It would normally be a value. In this case, it's a game object. If I wanted to put 10 objects or 10 elements into this array, 10, and automatically populates 0 through 9. These are the indexes or indices. And so that helps you too if you're going to write a custom script for it. You can also look at what index you are trying to address. And so for an example, I'm going to take this cube that I already have here, and I'm going to duplicate it. And I'm doing this with, you can do it by right-clicking and hitting duplicate. I'm also going to just hit Control D a few times, just so I have a few. And actually, let's make it enough. So you notice the first cube is already nothing after it. Cube 1, when I duplicate it, that's like an automatic name. And so the nice thing about that is, again, it kind of goes from that 0, 1, 2, 3. It's very similar to having an index. And so that helps when you have a lot of stuff named the same thing if you're just duplicating. So I'm going to duplicate it 2 more times. So we have 10 in total. And you can't really see it because it's all being drawn over itself, but I'm going to click on some of these just so you can see that, yes, these are all different cubes. And that's that one over there. That's that one. And so this is all in a list, but the list only right now exists in hierarchy. So this is technically a list that can be accessed. I can go a little bit into that in the future if you'd like help with that, but you can actually access all of this in kind of a list form because there's a way of creating an array very quickly to access this. But for right now, we're going to make our own array and we're going to define that array in the game controller. So we have 0 through 9. I'm going to fast forward this really quick, but I'm going to start clicking and dragging each one of these over here. All right. Now you see that we have defined what the different indices are and where the different elements are in our OBJS array. Now, whenever you want to access any of these objects in your text, you would just access it like we've seen in the past. So say I wanted to access number 4 for some reason. I'm going to open up my code. And if I were to want to access it for any reason, all I would have to do is say, since it's a game object, I can actually go straight for the game object and say OBJS, and then it would be the brackets to say like which part of OBJS I want, and I was wanting index 4. And after that, I can do whatever I want with that game object. Like if I were trying to change its position, I would want to access OBJS, the 5th element, so it's going to be index 4 dot transform, which is that transform component with all the information about position, rotation, and scale, and position. And I'm not going to go further than that because it's a little bit more complicated after that. But if I were to want to access the position, this is one way I could do it for just the index 4 object.